Yeah, I mean, you know what's funny is that my dad had a liquor store. We were Shoppers Discount Liquors. That was the store I grew up in. Wine was not a play in my household. My dad drank vodka and cognac because he's a good Russian boy. That's what we do. So I first fell in love with wine when I realized people collected it. And so my reading began at 17, 16 because I wanted to know a lot about it because people collected it. That was my hook. I was a collector. The actual loving of wine started really happening at like 22, 23 when, you know, it started going from being a commodity to being, oh man, I really like this stuff. This is interesting. Look at these crazy flavors. Like, how the heck did that just taste like a racquetball? Like, you know, those kind of things, right? So there was one specific Amarone that I had at a tasting when I was 22 when I could really taste the chocolate. So much so I walked outside and called my mom. Remember like when cell phones were like this big and you were like, you know, like that. I called my mom and I was like, Mom, it's gonna happen. I can taste these things. I can't believe this, but I just tasted chocolate in this wine. And that was probably when I was like, oh, this is really getting good. I was just enjoying it. Yeah, so that's a great question. I think, you know, I turned 30 on November 14th, 2005, and, you know, there was a 1% of unhappiness. You know, I'm like, okay, I want to buy the New York Jets, and so that's going to cost a couple $1 billion. Am I going to really make a couple $1 billion selling just wine? And the realization was I very much feel I could have had big, big things happen. I launched Wine Library in 1997, but the laws in this country, I mean, people watching this video right now in Boston can't buy wine from me, right? So I want to do something else. And at the same token, as I was feeling this itch in November, I went to a tasting in December and realized people did not have wine self-esteem. They wanted to drink the same old stuff. They wanted to be jerk-offs to each other because they thought they knew something because they read it in the latest Spectator. I just felt the wine culture had a lot of opportunity to be much cooler. And, you know, there's so many places around the world that I've traveled to where there isn't this, you know, uptight aspect to the wine industry. It's much more part of culture and daily life. And I felt like I was the kind of character, I knew my personality and my DNA and my hustle could create this platform that not only would be successful, then by virtue of that success would create a different kind of culture. So it wasn't so much that I was dissatisfied as if it was just, I wanted to change the game again. You know, there was an amazing feeling for me when I launched WineLibrary.com in '97. It was one of the first wine shops to do so, less than a handful. And it changed the game. It blew up my family business from a couple $1 million a year to ultimately, you know, $50, $60 million a year business. I wanted to do that again. I want to be a pioneer. It's what I want to do. And so that's what I did with Wine Library TV. You know, if anything, and maybe I was a little bit too aggressive. You know, I just emailed everybody and was like, hey, let's do this. Like, you know, check out my show. What can I do for you? At the same token, I don't think of that as a mistake. I feel as though I was a little bit more raw. I think, you know, 6 months later, I was a little more polished. But I wasn't more selective. Everybody's like, why don't you get selective? Don't hit up everybody. Hit up the top tier. You know, you can't blanket email everybody. You know, when people talk about marketing, I think that's crazy. I feel like Wine Library TV was itsy bitsy tiny in 2006, but if somebody hit me up, they'd be really happy to have the relationship today. And so, you know, what, just hit up the top 500 Twitter people today? That's insanity. That is elitism. So, you know, I pride myself in having a lot of hustle. And you know, that's what I did. I mean, if a top wine blogger was upset that I was hitting up everybody, you know, that might have been a mistake in some people's eyes, but not in mine. And so I'm sure I made a million mistakes. I mean, I built a big business around me. You know, it's not the most scalable thing in a lot of people's opinions, but to me, I understand kind of the vision that I see going forward, and I try to stay away from mistakes. The mistakes I make are the opportunities I haven't taken, like big platform television, things like that. I'm sure there's mistakes in my nose, but there's very few. Let's get really obnoxious. There's zero mistakes in my yeses, because normally my threshold for a yes is first learning, not necessarily the results. I need to know this. You know, I've thought about VCing companies just because I've never been VC'd, even though it's a stupid thing to do financially for the learning process. There was one big moment. That was the day I was on Conan O'Brien's show, and Slate.com wrote a huge profile on the same day. And this was in August of '07. So Twitter was still a baby, and that whole community, we all knew each other, kind of, sort of. And so it became like the only thing people talked about on Twitter, watch Gary on Conan, which was really cool. And was really I was really starting to foray into the tech world, the Web 2.0 world, the social media world, whatever the heck you want to call it. And it was one of the first people to kind of make it, right? Oh my God, he's in his office talking about wine. He's now on the Conan O'Brien show. And it went really well on top of that. So it was a big moment. It was the first time wine was getting late night exposure. On multiple levels, it was an interesting and important moment, both in the wine business and in the tech space. I would say that is the one moment that really I can pinpoint. Other than that, I'm not very big on analytics and metrics and paying attention to traffic and did we go 23% and this and that. I know what I'm doing is right. There's no ounce of me that has any doubt. And I work for myself, so there's no justifying it to the dinosaurs that sign my check. So that puts me in a very substantially good position in a lot of ways. Plus, I've done it before. I mean, I was making lots and lots of money, thousands of dollars a weekend selling baseball cards. You know, I've built up a family business in the first year I ran it from 3 to 10 million in sales. I know what I'm doing. When it comes to making money and building brand, it's just something I was born with. I'm not going to pat myself on the back. This is just, it's DNA. I'm a marathon runner. You know, capitalizing on something like that just doesn't, you know, how did I sign with CAA? You know, I got more exposure. Nightline did a piece. Ellen did a piece. You know, I got lots more Twitter followers. People cared more. I mean, there was a lot of things that happened. You know, but at the end of the day, what I think is important is that people have to understand it's a marathon. You know, building a business doesn't happen in 6 weeks. There's no shortcuts. You know, getting a Twitter account isn't a magic potion. You know, people roll up on me, especially in 2008. I got a Twitter account. I was like, great, what do you want, a cookie? I mean, it's like, you know, it's not gonna change your business. But, you know, at the same token, the people that think this stuff is silly and it's not important are just trying to draw lines in the sand because they don't want to be a part of it. And that's a huge mistake because unless you're retiring in the next 6 to 12 months, you better understand what this is all about inside and out. My vision is that I sell so many copies of Crush It that HarperCollins gets off my back and I can wing these next 9 for the rest of my career. Is that a good answer? You can tell them. They know exactly. You know, the funny part is this. What I love about it is I signed with Harper Studios. It's a totally different model. You know, I got offered almost as much for one book as these guys gave me for 10, but the rev share in the back end was substantially more. So they've changed the model quite a bit. And I'm betting on myself, right? So, you know, obviously I want to participate and win on the back end. I'm very hungry to see what I can do with this book. And I'm going to work really hard at it. And I'm very confident.